3 days ago, my fiancée told me something that broke something fundamental inside me. We were driving home from a dinner with her colleagues when she turned to me, jaw tight, and said, "Stop introducing me as your future wife. It makes me look like I settled." For a second, I honestly thought I'd misheard her. But when I looked at her, she wasn't joking, wasn't laughing, wasn't backtracking. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and keep watching, because the best part's coming up next. She meant it. And even though she tried to soften it later, tried to say the words didn't come out right, the truth was in her voice. She felt marrying me made her look like she'd chosen someone beneath her. My name is Owen. I'm 33, and until that night, I truly believed I was building a future with Andrea, the woman I dated for nearly 3 years and gotten engaged to just 5 months earlier. We met at a work conference. She was in corporate law, sharp and quick-witted, and I worked in finance. We clicked immediately, shared the same humor, the same goals, the same idea of what adulthood was supposed to look like. Everything with her felt natural. We moved in together after a year, got engaged the following spring, and set a date for the wedding next October. Back then, it felt like we were building a life together. But maybe I was the only one thinking that. 2 months earlier, the shift had begun. It started subtle. Small comments about my career, my ambition, my circle of friends. "Don't you want to aim higher?" she'd say. Or, "My friend's husband was promoted to VP. You two started around the same time, right?" They weren't cruel comments, not exactly. But they piled up. Each one chipped something tiny off the foundation of our relationship. I told myself she was stressed, that law was demanding, that she didn't mean to make me feel small. But the feeling grew anyway. Then came the engagement party for her friend Vanessa. I introduced Andrea the same way I always had. "This is my fiancée, Andrea." And later in the car, she scolded me like I'd embarrassed her. "You don't need to announce it like that," she snapped. "It sounds like you're claiming ownership." That confused me, but I let it go. I didn't want to fight, but 2 nights later, at a dinner with her old law school friends, someone asked how long we'd been together. Smiling, proud, I said the words that now sit like a stone in my chest. "Andrea is my future wife. We're getting married next October." The table went silent for a heartbeat. Andrea stiffened beside me. And later, in the car, she unleashed everything she'd apparently been holding in. "I asked you not to introduce me like that," she said. "Like what?" I asked, totally lost. "As your future wife. It makes me look like I settled, like I couldn't do better." I felt the air leave my lungs. Not because she insulted my career or my status, but because she insulted our relationship, our engagement, me. The conversation spiraled. She tried to frame it as insecurity, as anxiety about her social circle, as me twisting her words. But the meaning couldn't be twisted. She said I made her look like she settled. She said being engaged to me didn't look good enough for her friends. And she didn't apologize. She just went to bed. I sat in the living room for 2 hours, staring at the wall, replaying the last few months, every offhand remark, every comparison to her friends' partners, every time she seemed distant or dissatisfied. By the time I finally stood up, I'd made 2 decisions. First, I opened the list of events she had RSVP'd us for. Her friend's wedding shower, her college roommate's birthday, a firm gala, multiple brunches and dinners. I hadn't chosen a single one of them. She'd simply added me as her +1, like I was an accessory she apparently felt embarrassed to show in public. So I removed myself from every guest list, sent polite emails to the hosts, apologizing for the cancellation. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just clear, simple boundaries. Then I reached out to Melissa, Andrea's best friend, someone I'd always gotten along with. I told her what Andrea had said. Melissa didn't even hesitate. She said she'd help. The brunch was that Sunday. The next morning, Andrea behaved as though nothing had happened. She talked about wedding colors and guest lists while curling her hair, then casually asked if I'd confirmed our RSVP for her friend's shower. I canceled, I told her. She froze. Why would you do that? Because you're embarrassed to introduce me as your fiancé, I said calmly. I assumed you'd rather go alone. She accused me of being childish. I told her I was respecting what she said, that she didn't want to look like she'd settled, so I was removing myself from the equation. She tried to argue, but I didn't budge. By Sunday morning, she was desperate. She begged me to come with her. She didn't want to explain to her friends why I wasn't there. I told her she could tell them the truth. She didn't like that answer. She left for brunch looking irritated and anxious. What she didn't know was that Melissa had arranged for something to be waiting at her seat when she arrived. An envelope with her name on it. Inside was a letter I'd written, explaining how her comments had chipped away at me, how small I'd felt, how much pain I'd been carrying silently. And behind it, the cancellation confirmation for our wedding venue. At 11:15, my phone began ringing. Andrea. Then again, and again. I ignored all of them. Melissa texted. She opened it. You should have seen her face. 15 minutes later, Andrea burst through our apartment door, her face blotchy, shaking with fury and panic. What the hell is this? She shouted, waving the envelope. It's exactly what it looks like, I said. I canceled the venue. You can't cancel our venue without telling me. You told me marrying you makes you look like you settled, I said. So I'm solving the problem. No wedding, no settling. You're breaking up with me over one comment? She demanded. It wasn't one comment, I said softly. It's been months. Months of you comparing me to other people. Months of you making me feel like a disappointment. I'm done feeling that way. She tried everything. Anger, guilt, tears, bargaining. But nothing changed the reality. I asked her to pack a bag and stay with her sister while we figured out living arrangements. She left around 6, still crying. The next day, her mother called me, wanting to understand what had happened. Andrea had told her I'd overreacted. When I explained what Andrea had actually said, word for word, her mother went silent. Then she murmured, "Oh, Owen, that's not how you treat someone you love." That conversation confirmed everything I needed to know. Over the next weeks, Andrea tried repeatedly to fix things. She sent long texts about therapy, about realizing she was wrong, about wanting to rebuild. I stayed firm. Her apologies came only after consequences, not when it mattered. Her friends were divided, though Melissa stood firmly on my side. She told me later that several of Andrea's friends admitted they'd noticed small comments she'd made about me, hints that she viewed me as less ambitious or not at her level. So it wasn't just in my head. We canceled what needed canceling. She moved out, our finances untangled, our lives separated. 3 months later, she sent a handwritten letter. It was emotional, remorseful, even self-aware. She said she wasn't embarrassed of me. She was insecure about herself, about her own achievements. She said she thought having a more impressive partner would make her feel better about her own shortcomings. She said she projected her insecurities onto me. Maybe that was true. Maybe therapy was helping. Maybe she genuinely regretted everything. But regret doesn't undo damage. And then 4 months after everything blew up, life settled into something quieter, strangely peaceful. Andrea moved out completely. I kept the apartment. I rebuilt friendships I'd sidelined while trying to live up to her expectations. I started rock climbing. I began dating casually. I relearned what it felt like to be enough for myself. One afternoon, my brother asked if I ever thought about contacting Andrea. Maybe for closure. Maybe just to see how she was doing. But she already had her closure. She opened it in a restaurant, surrounded by the friends she had once been so desperate to impress. She saw in black and white exactly why I was done. I ran into her once, weeks later, at a coffee shop near our old place. She looked pale when she saw me. I nodded politely and kept walking. She texted later saying it was good to see me and that I looked happy. I didn't reply. Melissa later told me Andrea asked whether I was seeing anyone. Melissa shut her down. "That's not your business anymore," she told her. "You had someone good, and you made him feel like he wasn't enough." The truth, the one I came to slowly, painfully, is that Andrea hadn't misspoken that night. The comment during the drive wasn't an accident. It was the culmination of months of thoughts she'd been keeping inside. Thoughts she never should have had about someone she claimed to love. She had a version of her future in her mind. A picture-perfect image built on titles and status and appearances. And I didn't fit that image. Instead of confronting that, she tried to reshape me, hide me, polish me into something I wasn't. And when that didn't work, the resentment slipped through the cracks. I'm grateful, in the end, that I found out before the wedding, before kids, before years of slowly being chipped smaller and smaller, so I could fit inside a frame she'd built for someone else. Some people think the letter at brunch was dramatic. Maybe it was. But sometimes people need consequences spelled out clearly. Sometimes the truth needs to be delivered in a way that cannot be ignored. Would I do it again? Yes, every single step. Because walking away from someone who makes you feel small isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. Andrea thought I wasn't impressive enough for her friends. But in the end, it turned out she wasn't impressive enough as a partner. And that's all there is to it. Honestly, this entire story is a powerful reminder that love without respect isn't love at all. You can compromise on habits, routines, even values sometimes, but never on dignity. What Andrea said revealed a truth she had been hiding for months, maybe years. She valued appearances more than connection. And once someone starts seeing you as a reflection of their status instead of a partner, the relationship is already cracked. Owen didn't just walk away from a wedding. He walked away from becoming invisible in his own life. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Owen made the right decision? Would you have walked away sooner or tried harder to fix things? Let us know. We love hearing your perspectives.